Panning and zooming in Pinnacle Studio 25 is somewhat different from previous versions of Studio, and it can get very tricky. As usual, I'm not an expert, but this is what I find works for me, and hopefully I can save you some serious aggravation. Right-click on the clip, click Pan and Zoom. Our edit mode is in static, which means that whatever parameters you set, the clip will stay at those settings throughout the playing of that segment. Click the custom drop-down arrow. The default setting is full screen, start to finish. Note that the white frame here is right at the screen edges, and all the parameter numbers here are at 0. There's two presets. Static small zoom, which sets the image zoomed in at about 20%. The white frame here shows you the area of the screen you'll see. The window screen over here shows you what you actually see on your timeline. And static big zoom sets the image zoomed in at about 50%. I usually don't bother with rotation, but if you're interested in rotating your image, you can either drag it like this, or use the slider. To get your parameters back to 0 quickly, you double-click on the word at the left. You can see that my white frame is now back to the original full screen. Now let's say we want to set our own custom parameters, like zoomed into the house window here at the lower left. Drag the frame to the zoom level and the position you want. You can use these small arrows to make some final small adjustments. Oddly enough, when you want it to go up, you click the down arrow. And you can also use your computer keyboard keys to make these small adjustments. Just be sure that the slider here is highlighted in orange, or else you'll end up moving your scrubber instead of the frame. Now you have your static zoom. Your clip plays at these set parameters. All these parameter numbers stay the same throughout. And note this is a video, not a still shot. The parameters of the scene are set, but you can see the branches moving over here. If it were a still shot, the very same procedures would apply. Note that you have the choice of setting your parameters either by dragging the frame or by dragging the sliders over here. You can see how the numbers move when I drag a frame and how the frame moves when I drag a number. Stay within the frame unchecked means you can move a frame beyond the edge of the screen. Checked means it won't let you move it beyond the edge. Although you can grab a frame edge and drag it beyond the screen edge. But I usually don't want any black space beyond my image, so I keep this box checked. Okay, now let's try animated mode, where a scene pans and zooms as it plays and doesn't just stay at set parameters. Right-click on the clip, pan and zoom, static drop-down arrow, select Animated. Under the custom drop-down arrow, select Slow Zoom In. Pull this second window wider. The green frame represents the start parameters, the red frame the end parameters, and the white frame shows what is happening as you play the clip. Note how the top scrubber and the timeline scrubber below match in their movements. Usually you should use the top scrubber. If you use the bottom scrubber, you lose your preferred window up here. You can get that window back by clicking on Pan and Zoom Source. If you press play, you can see how the white frame over here starts full screen, then does a slow zoom in. If you stop it, you can see all three frames, as the white one is on its way to match the red one by the end. So this is a standard slow zoom in to the center. So far procedures have been pretty straightforward, but now let's say we want to set custom parameters, and this is where things can get difficult. This clip is 20 seconds long. I want to start at full screen, zoom in, hold, then zoom back out to full screen and hold to the end. First, I'm going to widen this window because that's where we can see our keyframes, our change points. Then I'm going to grab not the scrubber here, but the ruler slider and pull it all the way to the left so that it shows both the start keyframes and the end keyframes. Red marker means you're grabbing the scrubber. Little white icon means you're dragging the ruler slider. I'm going to drag the timeline to a width I'm comfortable with. I make sure the top scrubber is at the start, at full screen, at all zeros here. I make sure my pan and zoom source window is on. I'm going to drag the top scrubber to 4 seconds in. I'll click the zoom diamond, the horizontal diamond, and the vertical diamond to set those parameters at that 4-second spot. You can see the zoom parameter, because it's set to slow zoom in, is no longer at 0. I double-click the word zoom to get it to 0. And I have my first 4 seconds set at full screen. I'm going to drag the scrubber to 8 seconds in. And click on all 3 diamonds. I'm going to put in my parameter numbers. For a lower left zoom, 50, 22, and 22 are good numbers. I click on the zoom box, wait a second, and then enter 50, and press my computer enter key. Although you don't have to press the enter key necessarily, the number is automatically in as soon as you move to another number. But I like to press the enter key. I put in 22 for my horizontal and 22 for my vertical. Note how so far we have a zoom in, but from that point it doesn't just stay there, it continues to change on its own because we are on a default slow zoom in to the center. What we need to do is to enter the rest of our desired custom parameters. I'm going to drag the scrubber to 12 seconds in. Click the three diamonds. Put in the same three numbers, 50, 22, and 22, to hold that same zoom level. I'm going to drag the scrubber to 16 seconds in. Click the three diamonds. Click all three words to 0 to get back to full screen. I'm going to drag the scrubber to the end. And again, click all three words to 0. So that the last segment of the clip is at full screen. You might also want to check some of these options down here. I like to have low pass on to decrease flickering if there is any. And under the motion drop-down arrow, linear means an abrupt start and end. I always choose smooth so that it eases both in and out. That should do it. Let's take a look. Hold, zoom in, hold, zoom out, hold. Looks okay. This is what it looks like in the exported version with a little music. Looks good to me. To get back to your library from Pan and Zoom, click Properties up here, then Library. Incidentally, Studio version 21 has a preset called Pan Corners, which I thought was a very nice effect. Studio 25 no longer has it, but you can set those parameters yourself like this. Here I have a still picture of a nature scene that I want to enliven with motion. I'll make it about 10 seconds long. Right click, Pan and Zoom, Animated, Slow Zoom In, Scrubber at the start. I drag the green frame to the upper right corner at about 50 zoom size, the red frame to the bottom left corner at about 50 zoom size. I'll add some music. And this is what I get. If you have the Stay Within the Frame box checked, and you enter a parameter number that extends beyond the edge of the screen, it'll automatically adjust your number so that the image will stay within the screen frame. Like if I put in 28 for vertical here, which is beyond the edge of the screen, it changes it to 22.8 something. The white frame has landed right here at the edge of the screen. If you uncheck this box, then it holds your entry. Here's 28. Here's 40. Here's minus 40. Sometimes you set parameters at all zeros at either start or end, yet they automatically change to some number close to zero, like 0.05 instead of exactly zero. I'm pretty sure you can just ignore this, because it makes so slight a difference it's not noticeable, or because the box may show that number but the image itself may actually in fact be at zero exactly. At any rate, I found that it's not a problem. Sometimes I get a final segment where I set the parameters at all zeros, but the horizontal and vertical settings do not hold at zero, but just go ahead and automatically do their own thing and make the image wobble badly. I'm not sure, but I think this problem occurs when you fiddled around with your parameters too much, and some setting got embedded in there. Usually I find if I know my numbers ahead of time and put them in cleanly on the first try, it works fine. If you do get this problem with other parameters overriding the ones you put in, one way to fix it is to put in another set of keyframes near the end. Set them to zero, and then drag them to the end right over the end keyframes that were there. Then they usually hold. And if they still don't hold, what has worked for me is to delete the clip and drag the original clip down again to the timeline and start over. This time putting in your numbers cleanly on the first try so that no odd settings have a chance to get embedded in the clip. I thought a nice workaround would be to split the clip into 5 segments. Leave the first and last segments as is at full screen. Then make the second one zoom into the left corner, the third one hold there, and the fourth one zoom back out. But I found it constantly automatically overrode my settings anyway. I tried everything I could think of, and every once in a while it worked, but I could never figure out what the difference was. But then I came up with this successful workaround. Again, leave the first and last segments as is, at full screen. Highlight the second segment. Click Editor. Ignore Pan and Zoom, and instead go under Properties. Put the scrubber at the start. Click the horizontal diamond, the vertical one, and the size one to set the parameters at full screen. Move the scrubber to the end. Click the horizontal diamond and vertical diamond and put them at 50. Click the size diamond and put it at 200. Now that segment is a zoom in to the lower left corner. Highlight the third segment and make both the start and end settings 50, 50, and 200 to hold it at that setting. Highlight the fourth segment, make the start parameters 50, 50, 200, and the end parameters 0, 0, and 100 to make a zoom out segment. That should do it. Full screen, zoom in, hold, zoom out, full screen. Hooray! Hooray, it worked. And it only took me 2 weeks to figure that out. You can drag keyframes from one spot to another. To delete a keyframe, right-click, delete. You can also lasso a bunch and delete all of them, like this. Like this. It's not working. It's not working. Why? As long as you right-click directly on one of them to activate the command first. Okay, there we go. Making a copy of a keyframe. One way to do so is to check your previous keyframe numbers, 50, 22, and 22, and then enter those very same numbers. You can also make keyframe copies by right-clicking a keyframe, select Copy, move the scrubber to your desired spot, and you would think do a Control-V, but no, that does nothing. That does nothing, and yet there is a paste option over here. How do you activate that paste option? Answer, you right-click on a keyframe, copy, move to your next desired spot, not with your scrubber, but with your pointer. Right-click on that empty spot, and that brings up your paste option. Click paste, that'll do it. If you didn't land it just right, you can drag it over. When I first started working with the colored frames, I was confused as to why I was able to highlight and grab them sometimes, but not other times. Here's the deal on that. If your scrubber is at the start, you can click on the green frame and adjust it. If your scrubber is at the end, you can click on the red frame and adjust it. If your scrubber is somewhere along the timeline, you can adjust the white one, which sets parameters at that spot along the timeline. For example, if I move the white frame further out here, I'll get a slow zoom in that speeds up at that point. Distance-wise, we've put the white frame near the edge of the image, and time-wise, we've put it halfway through the 20-second clip. That means the zoom will travel slowly for the first 10 seconds of the clip, then more quickly during the second half of the clip, covering a greater distance during those second 10 seconds. You might want to do all your adjusting by dragging the frames, especially for simple operations. But I found it's easier to do my adjusting by entering numbers over here at the left. It's easier for me to keep track of what's going on. Note that having parameter numbers in mind ahead of time is a good idea. I might initially drag a frame to a desired spot and size, make a note of what the nearest whole numbers are at that point, and then start from scratch and work by putting in those numbers at the left. One general suggestion I have that applies to other procedures also is that if you're dealing with a complex clip or a bunch of clips, is to work on it as a separate movie until you get it right. Then export it, then re-import that set chunk into your movie line. With regard to panning and zooming, I recommend that anytime you find things have gone haywire, beyond your comprehension, with your image bouncing all over the place, it's probably best to Control-Z your way back to the first move. If not, delete the clip and bring it back down to the timeline again and start fresh. If not, close the program and reopen it. It seems that's the way to get rid of all kinds of stuff that somehow got embedded. And then try to go through the procedure again, fresh, cleanly, with a minimum of messing around and making adjustments. That's the way that I find I'm usually able to get the pan and zoom I want, if I don't mess around too much. With regard to help from Pinnacle Studio directly, when Studio opens up, it shows you help icons at the bottom, but I did not find them particularly helpful. The user guide tells you generally how to do things, but the problem is usually not that you don't know how to do things, but that it's not doing it the way it's supposed to. The community forums seem to me like just unhelpful bits of scattered information. The search help just offered broad definitions of terms, not how to do things. And the tech support I did not find helpful. In fact, if you're interested in what that was like, pause the upcoming screen here and you can read exactly what our interaction was. Why don't I call them? Maybe a technician there will be able to say right off the bat, oh yes, this is a common problem. You need to do A, B, and C, and then it should work fine. Or, will I get someone with an Indian accent I can barely understand, and he gives me the runaround, and I get nowhere. Let's go to the tape.
How long? Okay, please don't. I will surely help you. I'm so sorry for this. Before that, can you please confirm the CleverWorks reference number?
Say that again?
Do you have the reference number? If you have any reference number or ticket number, please tell me the number.
Reference number of what?
Yeah, please tell me.
Reference number to what?
Okay, please check your sales invoice bill. There will be a CleverWorks reference number. Please tell me the number, sir.
I don't know what number you're talking about.
Okay. Do you have the sales invoice bill? Or
and
okay.
And I am.
Do you have the data purchase?
The data process?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Data process.
No, data purchase.
Oh, the date of purchase. Why in the world do you want to know the date of purchase? What difference does that make? Answer? You have no answer. The data, I bought it about a year ago. Is that good enough? Hello? Hello? Apparently, he is gone.
I called again. This time I got a lady, but at least I could understand her.
Right. It keeps putting in its own numbers instead of the numbers that I put in.
Okay, understood, sir.
Yeah.
So this is a quite technical issue. No need to worry. I will raise a ticket to my tech team. So my tech team will give you the valid response to resolve your issue.
But now you're going to refer me right back to where I came from.
Ticket number. I will check with my team if anyone.
Why do we have to go through all these numbers and everything? I can't get an answer. Nobody can give me an answer as to why it does that. Surely this has been happening with other people also. Oh, I don't mean to offend you, but it's just so frustrating.
Call support, but the ticket was in high priority, and someone is going to. The team have been assisted someone for yearly. So then you will get the response from tech team as soon as possible. Okay, so kindly wait for a few more hours.
Okay.
Also, you will,
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
and they will give you they will clear all your issues, and they will give you valid response to resolve your issue.
Yeah, I hope so. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's 5 days later. I have not heard anything. I don't mean to be too hard on Pinnacle Studio. After all, I'm still using the program after all these years. It's the devil, I know. It is a very capable program, and version 25 is an improvement over previous versions. And their selection of tutorials up here is pretty decent, and they're well done. Figuring out how to do panning and zooming has been a bear for me. I wish Pinnacle Studio would concentrate more on user friendliness and program stability and less on new bells and whistles. At any rate, thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Good luck.